We can now calculate the number of the beast, but first let's look at Revelation 13:16 through 18. It says, "And he, Charles, or the Antichrist, causeth all, both small and great, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell except he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, what is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Every English and Hebrew letter has a numeric value associated to it in sequential order from A to V. For example, if we look at this picture of Tim Cohen's calculation, if you look in the first column, it has every letter from A to V. In Hebrew, the letters W to Z don't exist, so we exclude that from the English letters as well. Then next to it, you have the Hebrew pronunciation with the Hebrew symbol next to it, and next to the Hebrew symbol, you have a numeric value. With those values, you can actually calculate your name to a complete numeric value. So if I put Keenan, K is 20, E is 3, so that's 23, plus E again, which is 3, that's 26, plus 50, which is 76, which is N, plus A, which is 1, so that's 77, plus N again, which is 50, so that's 127. That's the value of my name if you had to calculate it. Now, if you look there, Prince Charles of Wales is laid out there for you with the numeric value next to it. And if you add it up, that adds up to 666 in both English and in Hebrew. The chances of that happening, according to Tim Cohen, is near impossible. It's a mathematical impossibility. But it's possible for Prince Charles in not only English, but in Hebrew as well. That should be enough to be basically the nail in the coffin.
Right? So we can do the native calculation on the biblical system in an authorized way. And as it turns out, the title, Charles, Prince of Wales, by which Prince Charles has been known globally all this time until just the last few days, calculates to exactly 666 in more than one language. Even on one language, that's close to impossible. You would struggle greatly to find anyone's name in history that calculates this, and I'm talking about like a biblical formatted name, like Jesus of Nazareth, Prince Charles of Wales, King Jesus of Nazareth, Mashiach Jesus of Nazareth, whatever. But it's usually a place associated with it, right? Like a first name, a title, a place. It's the same format for Charles, Prince of Wales, or Prince Charles of Wales. That title works out to 666 in both English and Hebrew on the original system.
Now that we have the calculation, which is close to impossible, like I said, for the name to be 666 in both languages, we can now look at what Charles is doing in the world.
Well, guess what? He's been the number one globalist on the planet since his investiture in July of '69. Bar none, he has been the most powerful human being in the world the entire time behind the scenes. Everybody internationally takes him so seriously that they bow to him, practically. And I'm going to circle back to that. So his lineage to begin. His mother, when she was coronated queen, was coronated queen of thy people Israel, quote unquote. Her lineage atop it, her official lineage published in London, which is very detailed, and it's offered through Prophecy House. I'm not just saying this. The chart is available with the book for those who want to get it. Her lineage shows Queen of thy people Israel, the royal house of King David. They explicitly claim to sit upon the throne of David, the British monarchy does. And that's been taken seriously enough in Israel for it to be announced on national television that Prince Charles is a descendant of King David. That happened before the first edition of the book was published in 1998. That could not happen unless there were rabbis in Israel behind the scenes saying, okay, who can we look at who's got a lineage we think we can verify who might be a descendant of King David, since our temple genealogies, the genealogical records were destroyed with the Second Temple. What are we going to be able to come up with now? And that is what they came up with.
And okay, what's amazing to me is that you said they announced that twice in
At
Israel.
least twice, yeah, before 1998.
Okay, and they've never done that with anyone else, correct?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't heard of that being done with anybody else ever, not even his
Uh,
sons.
okay, so repeat again. They announced that he
Is
was
a descendant of King David. Why
okay,
would they do that? And then on top of that, from his
but which
lineage,
actually would then make Israel trust him more to be their Messiah.
you would think so. He claims to be a descendant also of Muhammad through the Hashemite lineage, which is the line of descent ostensibly from Muhammad, like Jordan's King Hussein, like Iraq's Saddam Hussein before he was killed. Yeah, Prince Charles is of that same lineage. And behind the scenes, he converted to Islam under a guardian of Islam, one of the most powerful Muslims in the world. He received an honorary doctorate in Islamic studies from the university there in Cairo, Egypt, the most powerful seat of Islamic learning in the whole world. So Prince Charles is the most popular Westerner from anywhere in the world to the Muslims of the Middle East, and has been this whole time. And that was true. I mentioned that also. That was true even at the time I wrote the first edition of the Antichrist in a Cup of Tea. He has no peer among Westerners so far as the Muslims of the world are concerned. And so he's got those two things. Then he's now, as King of England, head of the Anglican Protestant Church. Can you imagine the lack of spiritual discernment for the Anglican Protestant Church to put the Antichrist as their head? And that is what they have just done.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that.
All the major royal houses of the world, even Japan's, report to the British monarchy through their orders of chivalry. Even Japan's emperor was a knight under the British monarchy before World War II. He was kicked out during the war. He came right back in after the war. Akihito, his descendant, was then a knight in the Order of the Garter. That's the Order of Chivalry I'm speaking of in this case. That order is headed by birth by the British monarch of the day and the Prince of Wales of the day. So it was Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Charles. Now it's King Charles III and Prince William.
So to demonstrate his power over this world, we have to remember firstly that Prince Charles is now King Charles after Queen Elizabeth died. So Prince Charles is now King Charles, and the crown which he wears owns 15 realms, Commonwealth realms, or 14 countries. But they call it Commonwealth realms, and it's actually from where the Commonwealth Games derive. So the 15 Commonwealth realms are Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, the Bahamas, Belize, Canada, Grenada, Jamaica, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, and the United Kingdom are all owned by the crown which is worn by King Charles at this very moment, which in itself is amazing. The amounts of power that this man has is astounding.
He's behind everything happening in the world today, and you probably have never heard that.
Right, right. I found it interesting also because people talk about Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset, but what did you find out about King Charles with the Great Reset?
Yeah, when we hear about the Great Reset, the first thing people see typically is Klaus Schwab's book, which is the Great Reset. And what the Great Reset, folks, is the actualization, the implementation on the ground of the New World Order. In other words, the New World Order was the plan, and now they're implementing it. And that's what the Great Reset actually is. They're now actively fomenting it and bringing it to pass in a very plotted, planned, conspiratorial way. Now, Prince Charles was the person, not Klaus Schwab, who announced the Great Reset to the world from the World Economic Forum. Months before Klaus Schwab's book came out, months before Klaus Schwab mentioned the Great Reset, months before anybody else ever said anything about it, it was Prince Charles talking about the Great Reset and quote unquote, build back better.
Interesting.
And it was Prince Charles who personally kicked in motion and announced to the world the Great Reset. Klaus Schwab reports to Prince Charles. Even though Klaus Schwab started the World Economic Forum, even though he is a socialist / communist, is over the World Economic Forum, he is under Prince Charles and the whole time has been.
Prince Charles also started the WEF, which is the World Economic Forum, which is pushing forward the Great Reset, which is in fact the New World Order. Prince Charles of Wales and the World Economic Forum. I searched that, and immediately it says the Great Reset, which is the New World Order. By the way, the Great Reset initiative is an economic recovery plan drawn up by the World Economic Forum in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So they disguise it as a response to a catastrophe, which they started. But that's what the Freemasons do. They believe in order out of chaos, and they create the chaos and they create the order that subsides the chaos, and that way they can bring in their own agenda. Now, the Great Reset is a one world government, a one world currency, and a one world religion, where the Antichrist runs the one world government, the money goes through the Antichrist, which is the one world currency, and the Antichrist will be worshipped in the one world religion. So let's carry on and let's read. The project was launched in June 2020 with a video featuring the then Prince of Wales, Charles, released to mark its launch. And who marks its launch? The Antichrist, Prince Charles. Because the Antichrist wants the one world government, the one world currency, and the one world religion, which is the Great Reset. The Great Reset. It's his plan. Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is just the face of the organization, but it's Prince Charles who's behind it. So let's click the first article here in June 2020. Klaus Schwab and Prince Charles on why we need a Great Reset. Listen to the podcast. The first bullet point, the Great Reset launched by World Economic Forum and His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. This is the man who's behind it. It's him. And lastly, Prince Charles is also the one behind the climate change movement. Now, I've picked these three examples strategically to demonstrate his power, because through these associations, Prince Charles actually is leading the free world as we know it. People even call him the savior of the world because of how he started the climate change movement, or the COP, because they say he's trying to preserve the planet.
More like footing. Having myself had the opportunity of consulting many of you over these past 18 months, I know you all carry a heavy burden on your shoulders, and you do not need me to tell you that the eyes and hopes of the world are upon you, to act with all dispatch and decisively, because time has quite literally run out. The recent IPCC report gave us a clear diagnosis of the scale of the problem. We know what we must do. With a growing global population creating ever-increasing demand on the planet's finite resources, we have to reduce emissions urgently and take action to tackle the carbon already in the atmosphere.
Did you hear what he just said?
With a growing global population creating ever-increasing demand on the planet's finite resources, we have to reduce emissions urgently and take action to tackle the carbon already in the atmosphere.
This is what the climate change movement is all about. It's a hoax. It's a cover-up for an excuse to depopulate the world. He just said the growing problem is overpopulation, where too many people are using the planet's finite amounts of resources. And what did he say we have to do quickly? Reduce the emissions. He's not speaking to you and me, guys. He's speaking about you and me. He's speaking to them, the elites, telling them that they need to reduce us. Me and you are the emissions. Whenever they say emissions or carbon, they are speaking about human beings. Millions of people will die at the Antichrist's hand. And the climate change movement is just a cover-up for depopulation and control, because they want the population at a certain level where they can control them more easier. The WEF, or the World Economic Forum, is a very interesting one that goes back to Revelation 13:16 in the beginning, where he causes all to receive a mark, and without it you won't be able to buy or sell.
Listen to this. Instead of carrying your wallet in your back pocket or your purse, a tech company wants you to keep it under your skin.
All right, so let's explain here. Walletmore is selling microchips implanted in your hand as an alternate payment. Could this be the future? Maybe. Once you set up your card info in the company's app, look at this, it says payments could be as easy as swiping your hand over a card reader. Right now, chips are not sold in the US. Crazy.
Well, in 2023, January, just last month in Davos, where the WEF meeting was held, the implementation of a cashless society was basically spoken about, and it's basically underway. They want to do away with cash completely, physical money, and they want you to be able to pay with just a swipe of a hand by just waving your hand over a barcode. And that's going to be the mark of the beast. That's how Prince Charles is going to implement it.
In 2020 and 2021, the World Economic Forum convened the Digital Currency Governance Consortium. The consortium has 2 phases and is currently exploring the second phase. Phase 1 consisted of the forum publishing the white paper series Compendium Report. This phase is complete, while Phase 2 will examine the macroeconomic impacts of digital currencies and inform approaches for digital currency regulation.
As you can see, every single country, or predominant country in the world, attends the WEF, and he owns 15 Commonwealth realms, and almost every single country also attends these climate change meetings, these COP meetings, which he started. Very interesting to see the power of Prince Charles. And it's very weird because he does everything behind the scenes. You'd never expect it, but it's happening.